Some more analysis from Jennifer Brick Murtazashvili. She's an associate professor of international affairs at the University of Pittsburgh, where she joins me now live. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program, Professor. Now, the U.S. is threatening Russia with sanctions once again, which hasn't really been effective in the past, has it?
It hasn't been effective for the most part, but I think that sanctions that the U.S. is threatening in this particular case are very heavy hitting and will have a huge impact on Vladimir Putin and his inner circle. So, the sanctions that we've seen before will be nothing like those that are coming here.
What do you make of Russia's UN representative's remarks of Ukraine being responsible of its own destruction if it undermines peace agreements? Remind us of some of the details from those peace agreements and how Ukraine would be breaching them.
So this was actually quite a confusing statement, but what they were talking about was the 2014 Minsk Protocol, which called for de-escalation in the Donbass. And so this issue had to deal with the sending of arms to Ukraine and, the sort of looking like would be offensive operations inside of Ukraine. And I think that's what the UN was calling sort of a violation of that agreement. But on the other hand, what you see on the Russian side is clearly an escalation. Sending hundreds of thousands of troops to the Ukrainian border is clearly an escalation from the Russian side, but the UN agreement talked about what was going on inside of Ukraine. That's why it's an alleged violation, but I don't see it that way.
Right, and when U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with his counterpart Sergei Lavrov, he said that the U.S. is insisting an invasion is imminent because of the history of Russia's actions towards Ukraine and, of course, the military buildup that you mentioned along its border. Do you think that that's the case, or is the U.S. trying to accomplish something else by constantly emphasizing the threat Ukraine is facing? And it's important to mention that Zelensky himself said, don't cause panic in this particular moment.
Sure, Zelensky is in an impossible position, right? I mean, this is having a devastating effect on his economy, and that, frankly, is what Russia, I think, is really looking for. So I don't think the U.S. is wrong here. I actually don't think Zelensky is wrong. Zelensky doesn't want to see panic, but Zelensky is panicked because of the effect that this is having domestically. But he has to reassure his population, of course, that he's in control, that he has a military that's in control. And I think what Russia is trying to do is sort of really drive a wedge between NATO partners, between the EU, and Russia is clearly escalating here. And I don't think that the U.S. is sort of behaving irrationally. I think that we're seeing all players behave rationally. It's just a question of how we're going to find compromise on this issue.
Right, and Zelensky has, for the most part, been on the sidelines during diplomatic talks that have been held in recent time to quell tensions, but that might very much so change in the near future, given that Turkey has now said that it's ready to mediate tensions between the two sides. And we know that President Erdogan is going to make an official visit to Kiev this week, where this topic will highly likely be at the top of their agenda. Do you think that Ukraine wants to take this crisis moving forward head on, or is it okay with the U.S. and NATO representing it?
No, I think that Ukraine cannot do this alone, and I think Ukraine understands that it can't do this alone. So, of course, Zelensky wants to be the face of it. He wants to be the face of calm, but it also truly helps, I think, to have Erdogan coming to Kiev. I think it's really important to have that face of NATO, as part of this discussion. And we know that there's been, really interesting relations between Russia and Turkey over the years. And I think Turkey has a very important role that it can play in brokering this situation right now. So it creates actually lots of possibilities, maybe to strengthen NATO, to strengthen this alliance and what it means, also to protect Ukraine. So my sense of what's going on here is that Putin is really trying to destabilize the alliance, and that's his broader goal, rather than just a unilateral military intervention of Ukraine. So by Erdogan coming to Ukraine, I think we're going to see a strengthening of that relationship, and possibly that could lead to some kind of de-escalation.
All right, Jennifer Brick Murtazashvili, thank you so much for joining us here on the NewsHour and sharing that analysis with us.